Okay, so Jericho, before we get to our guest, Gabby Bernstein, who I'm so excited about, I want to take a minute and give a shout out to Bumble Biz. Bumble Biz was the official networking app of the Girlboss rally in New York back in November, and it's such a game changer. Just like the Bumble dating app, it puts women in control of deciding who they want to connect with when it comes to making professional connections, which is obviously important because, as we've been reminded of over and over again with the headlines recently, professional settings, quote-unquote, are still full of total creeps. And trying to network off of cold calls can just be a total bummer. It's like, can we just get through all the BS and get straight to the smart women? Well, yes, with Bumble Biz, we can.
Yes, I love that. And I love that it's already in the Bumble app, so you don't have to download a separate app. You just go in there, activate Bumble Biz mode, and fill out your profile.
And you can actually turn off the dating part of Bumble now so that it's not even visible on your phone. So that if your significant other looks at your phone, they just see that it's for networking and not like any funny business. So that's pretty cool.
Exactly, no funny business. So for anyone that's totally new to Bumble and they want to give Bumble Biz a try, how do they go about doing it?
Well, you just go to the App Store and download the Bumble app. And then you can set up your Bumble Biz profile, which is so easy. And once you're all set up, you can immediately start swiping right on the people you want to connect with. And once you make a match, you have 24 hours to start a networking conversation. And the person you matched with, likewise, then has 24 hours to respond. And I'll say it again because it bears repeating. Just like the dating mode in Bumble, women get to make the first move.
Exciting.
Yes.
Love that.
Success. It's such a complicated idea, and yet for so long we've all collectively subscribed to a single definition of the word, which was likely given to us by a white-haired dude somewhere in a boardroom in the 1960s. And there's nothing wrong with that definition, with the notion of climbing a corporate ladder with a singular focus. But it's time to make space for a few other definitions, for side hustles and well-being and failing forward, and for the idea that success is a wild ride, not the destination at the end of it. Join me for a journey into the lives of women who are redefining success and paving the way for others with grit and grace. I'm Sophia Amoruso, the founder and CEO of Girlboss Media, and this is Girlboss Radio. Gabby Bernstein is a guru for every one of us. For over a decade, she's been coaching and guiding people all over the world, and her loyal following is primarily young women. Gabby's philosophies are rooted in her own life experiences that led her to hit rock bottom at just 25 years old while working as a publicist in nightclubs and restaurants.
On October 2nd of 2005, I had a real bottom where I looked at my life and I knew that this was not the direction I was meant to be going in. And I also knew that it was either I'd turn it around or I would die. Like that was definitely the direction. And so I said a prayer. I asked for a miracle. And on that morning when I asked for that miracle, I really heard an intuitive voice, a voice within me say, get clean and you will live a life beyond your wildest dreams.
It was a time in Gabby's life where she became addicted to work, addicted to alcohol, and addicted to drugs.
I was really just on an outward search for my happiness. I was really looking for my self-worth in my credentials and in my relationships and in my access to these clubs. And very quickly that turned into a lot of addictive patterns. So work addiction, so just, working all the time, never really being present with people. And food addiction, I was always struggling with, overeating or undereating or whatever was going on there. And then a lot of those addictions ultimately turned into a really nasty drug addiction.
She picked up the pieces and built a life that includes a successful business motivating other women to live their most spiritual life and a handful of New York Times bestsellers. Oprah Winfrey called Gabby a thought leader for the next generation. Her latest book, Judgement, Detox, Release the Beliefs That Hold You Back from Living a Better Life, will be released in early January.
It's a beautiful 6-step practice on how to heal our judgmental addiction. And I say addiction because judgment is just another form of addiction. It's a way that we anesthetize any deep-rooted feelings of inadequacy or self-attack or feelings of not being good enough. We judge and we project out what we don't want to feel within.
Today, Gabby's here to offer us guidance on how we can all bring some consciousness and serenity to our hectic lives. But first, here's Jericho, the editorial director at Girlboss and soon-to-be host of her own Girlboss podcast.
Oh my God, hi.
Jericho!
Yeah.
It'll be a second podcast from Girlboss, which I think makes us maybe a network.
I think so.
All you need is more than one.
But today, I'm going to talk to you about bullying.
Oh.
Sad.
God damn it.
Have you ever met a workplace bully?
Yeah, I have.
Same.
I have. They're bullies on the way out, too, and even when you have to remove them.
That's so sad.
It sucks.
But do you know one thing about workplace bullies?
What?
Well, they're just people like you and me. And in our story that we have on the site by a writer called Mandy Velez this week, it's called The One Key Thing You Need to Understand About Workplace Bullies. And that's it. They are people that can't control their emotional responses as well as you and I. And understanding that is going to help you better control your response to them.
How do you respond to a bully?
Well, first you have to acknowledge that the old saying, hurt people hurt people. So it seems counterintuitive, but you have to put yourself in their shoes as like step number one. So you got to be like trying to understand like why they might be being a bully. Maybe it's because they are dealing with a lot of like anxiety and stress, and that's manifesting in like them just being a grumpy pants or like acting like a mean girl. But if you can kind of understand it, then with empathy, you can deal with them better, and that's just going to help you and them as well in the process. So the second thing you want to do is like check in often. So often like if people are bullies, they feel like they want to be in control of the situation and they want to feel like you're on their team, and their knee-jerk reaction might be that you're not on their team. So again, like it means that you have to kind of go high, as Michelle Obama would say, but you have to be like reminding them of stuff like, hey, like we're working on this project together. Like, would you like me to do X, Y, and Z? So kind of preempting their worries so that they don't manifest in like a dangerous way.
Yeah. So pander to them.
Basically pander to them. It's sucky, but I guess with time and practice, you know, it's just kind of like nonviolent communication strategy. Like eventually it just kind of seems normal and everyone's happy. Like that's the goal. You might say you're pandering to them, but there's always going to be a boundary where you have to stand up for yourself. Like there's going to be a time where you have to be like, for example, like if somebody is treating you like you're incompetent, like you have to remember like, no, I got this job because I deserve it and I know what I'm doing. And if, you know, you need to kind of say like your behavior is out of line, then it's really important that you do that. And this article like gives you some advice on how to do it, like the language to use, what not to use. Like you don't want to send them into like a maniacal rage. You just want them to be focused on like their reactions and the fact that like the certain reactions that they have are like intolerable.
Yeah.
And if you need to like take it higher, which sometimes happen, like you got to get HR involved in whatever, then just keep receipts at the time. Like have your own back, you know, if there's consistent like bad behavior, just document it. So
Screenshot.
Screenshot that shit.
Yeah. Cool. That and much more incredible content is coming to you daily at girlboss.com by Jericho and our amazing team. So check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in case you guys have missed it, which I'm doubting you have, we've partnered with Pinterest the last few weeks to reclaim what Wednesday means to all of us. Because hump day gets a bad rap, and hump day is actually the time of my week where I just kind of start to hit my stride. So in order to mix things up on What If Wednesday each week, we're encouraging our listeners and ourselves to try something new and see how it affects our overall sense of well-being and productivity.
And if you play along, not only are you giving yourself the chance to refresh and reset, but you're also giving yourself the chance to win a copy of the new Girlboss workbook. We're giving away 3 signed copies every week.
Woo.
Plus, whoever participates will automatically be entered into the draw to win 2 free tickets to the next Girlboss rally in LA in March 2018.
It might be April.
Great.
Stay tuned. But still, pretty cool.
Yeah.
2 tickets. That's like over $700 value. So here's how you can join. We dish out a challenge each week. We all try it. and then we reconvene here, same time, same place, to see how it went for everyone. So this week's question is, Jericho, tell us what the question is.
What if you tried something new to boost your confidence this week?
Ooh, I love that. Confidence comes from what? Inner strength? Calm? So try cultivating your calm with a bit of nature. Ooh, add a plant baby to your life and see if it changes the way you feel throughout the day, because it really does work, according to science. I used to work in a plant store, and it was the most therapeutic. Yeah, it was a hydroponic plant store.
I would love that.
A 2015 study published by the National Institute of Health showed that having indoor plants can reduce psychological and physiological stress.
And if you're looking for DIY air plant, succulent, office-friendly plants of your choosing inspiration, What If Wednesday Pinterest board has you covered. So just share your plants on Instagram. Use the hashtag What If Wednesday, hashtag Girlboss Radio, hashtag My Pinterest, so we can share your stories and beautiful plants on the website and help you win some prizes.
Woo, easy. Jericho, you know what time it is?
What time?
Time to talk about ShipStation.
Yay.
Yeah, so the holidays are almost here, and if you're selling stuff online, this is the craziest time for you. I'm so glad to be in a very different kind of business right now, but you're selling real goods, and this is peak season for you if you're in e-commerce, which
We're sorry.
I missed that. I missed that revenue. ShipStation is built to get your orders out quickly, to stay on all of the nice lists, you naughty and nice, your customers' nice lists this holiday season. So it's the fast and easy way to manage all of your holiday orders and ship them from one place, whether it's on your phone or your tablet or your computer. ShipStation makes it easy to, even if you sell on Shopify, Squarespace, Etsy, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, whatever your shopping cart, ShipStation brings in all your orders to one easy-to-use interface, making them really easy to manage from any device.
But what about the special offer?
Oh, there's a special offer.
Thanks.
Just for you, just this holiday season, right now, try ShipStation.com free for 30 days and get an additional month free, but only if you use our offer code GIRLBOSS. Don't wait, Jericho.
I won't. Go
to ShipStation.com, and before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Girlboss. That's ShipStation, ShipStation.com, enter Girlboss. ShipStation. Make ship happen. Gabby Bernstein has been teaching, speaking, and coaching people all over the world. What started as small group workshops in her apartment soon exploded into a movement based on her personal philosophy. She has created a powerful network of support and inspiration. Gabby is the teacher you want to learn from and the friend you want to share everything with. Ladies, and maybe a few gentlemen, here's Gabby Bernstein. So you got into meditating in high school. That's really, maybe the modern kind of Gen Z, I don't even know if they're millennials or Gen Z or Y or whatever kids today, are maybe meditating, but it's like most teenagers are like really angsty and embarrassed, and the last thing they want to do is get spiritual. Did you do it with friends, or, what led you to getting into that beyond your mom introducing it to you?
Well, I think that being in that existential crisis, like I was talking about, feeling really disconnected and depressed and scared, led me to ask my mom for help. And I knew that my mom had a solution, because I'd see her very anxious and stressed out. And then I'd watch her walk into her bedroom and turn on her mantras, and I'd smell incense under the door. And I would see her come out an hour later like a totally different person. So I knew there was something in that, and I knew that I needed that. So I went to my mom and I said, just show me what you got. And sometimes we find a spiritual practice out of desperation, and that was the case for me. I was just desperate. And I remember finding so much grace and ease and peace just very, very quickly. And it's something that I've relied on since that time, since that age.
You never stopped? There's never been a lapse?
Well, even when I was in my early 20s and really suffering and really disconnected, I still used my meditation practice. It was like, even at my darkest hour, strung out on drugs, I was using my meditation practice to come down. So I definitely never really turned my back on it. I think that in my early 20s, I turned my back on having a consistent practice, but I would use it when I was in desperate times. And a lot of that early 20s was pretty desperate for me. So thankfully I had that meditation practice. And I also believe it's my meditation practice that saved my life, because through my meditation practice, I was able to realize that I was going down the wrong path. And in those moments of contemplation, I could hear my inner wisdom tell me to get my shit together. And that was really what redirected me. So thank God I had that seed planted at such a young age so that I could call on it and turn to it when I needed it most.
So I want to get to that, but you went to college and you majored in theater. Why theater?
Well, I think that I didn't really excel in high school. I was never really nurtured to be academic. So it wasn't, I think, those limiting beliefs that begin at a certain age. Like I remember exactly the day that this happened in 6th grade. This boy I had a crush on told me that he thought I was stupid. And that one comment redirected my entire educational path. And so I felt like, okay, well, I can thrive in the arts and I can be a performer and that's where I shine, but I'm never going to shine academically. And so that belief system really, really screwed me up for a long time. And I did love theater. I loved theater in high school. I loved theater, and I stopped loving theater in college, to be honest with you, Sophia. I think that going to a BFA program in theater can be a little bit traumatic for people. It can be traumatic and dramatic. And I felt a little bit turned off to it. And by the time I graduated college, I had this degree in theater, but I had no interest in being an actress. It was just like really clear to me that's not what I was meant to do. And I was really ready to prove myself to the world. So I went out and I started I started a business at 21, which was a PR firm.
Was that
where
your
I represented
Was that your first
nightclubs.
job?
Yeah, I had an internship in PR when I was right out of college for a few months, just to see if it was something I was into. And
then
it was a young
business.
PR company, and I was like, if these 20-something-year-olds can do this, then I can do this. And I was at the same time, the way I was making money was by promoting parties. So my cousin now owns a bunch of nightclubs, but prior to that, was a party promoter. And so he'd have me be the sub promoter for these parties. So I was really good at getting all my young girlfriends to come to these parties. And I, negotiated 20% of the bar, and I started making cash right away. And I remember the first night I did, through my first party, I made $1,000 cash. And I was like, oh, I never have to worry about money again. I know how to make money. And that was a total quantum shift for me. I decided that moment, money is not my problem. And it never has been. So I think that, that's a message for everybody listening. It's like, you can change your story. That wasn't the way I was brought up. I was brought up with a real limiting belief around money. I was brought up with a lot of limitation and a lot of fear-based stories with money being a real scary thing in my household. And it was overnight I turned that story around.
And so what was your life as a nightclub publicist like?
It was really sad. I thought that I was really hot shit because I could get into any club and, just brushing shoulders with people. But I was really just on an outward search for my happiness. I was really looking for my self-worth and my credentials and in my relationships and in my access to these clubs. And very quickly that turned into a lot of addictive patterns. So work addiction, so just, working all the time, never really being present with people. And food addiction, I was always struggling with, overeating or undereating or whatever was going on there. And then a lot of those addictions ultimately turned into a really nasty drug addiction. And so by the time I was 25, I was in bad shape. I was the girl that was still in the club, way beyond the point of needing to be, or being allowed to be. And, the girl on Sunday night in the empty nightclub, going out anyway.
Back in 2005, Gabby was living a much darker life, battling addictions that included alcohol and drugs. I asked Gabby to talk to us about when she realized she had a problem and when she decided to change her life.
So I was 25, and I was looking at my life. There was a lot of things that were big signs that things weren't working. One was I was a cocaine addict. So that's a pretty gnarly addiction. It's not like, it's not like drinking where you're like, oh, everybody drinks, you know. I guess I did have the story that everybody did cocaine, which was like kind of a big joke, but anyone I knew did. And I got to the point where it was, you know, I had 6 ulcers. I was 95 pounds. I was losing my memory. Like, I was looking at the intern that had worked for me for a year across the room, and I couldn't remember her name. So it's very scary what that can do to your brain. And I was becoming mean. I remember being at brunch with my brother, and he was like, "Where did you park the car?" And I was like, "I don't know where I parked the car." And I started yelling at my brother, who's a really kind, lovely person. I just kept screaming, "I don't know where I parked the car." And I was, in that same day, I was rude to the waitress, and I'm a really nice person. So I didn't really feel like I was in alignment with my true nature. And then I always had this sense that there was something more for me. I always had a sense that there was a better path, a path where I would be doing something, where I was leading, and I was speaking publicly. Because even at the time when I was deep in this addiction, I had been speaking publicly at universities and in marketing classrooms, and I was asked to speak all over the place because, I don't know, once you start just putting yourself out there, people started asking, hearing, oh, this person spoke in my marketing classroom, can she speak in this PR classroom? And so I started doing the rounds at FIT and NYU and Baruch, and I was speaking for free, Sophia, like completely for free. And I really was lit up at this time, and I was still using drugs and still running the nightclubs and doing all the things I was doing at night. But this one area of my life was really thriving. And I was so lit up every time I would get up. And all I was doing was being asked, just like you do during these Girlboss summits, just asking people to share their entrepreneurial journey. And so I was 23, 24, 25, just getting up in front of these classrooms of college students who at the time really looked a lot like me because they weren't much younger than I was. And I would be wearing like cowboy boots and a leather jacket, and I'd be telling them about how I started my first business at 21. And I'd be inspiring them and sharing a transformational story. And even though I had no idea how to be a motivational speaker, I had no idea what I was doing, I was just living it and enjoying it and doing it. And I felt so lit up by it that I knew that there was something in that for me. And I still had this great spiritual foundation, and I had all these self-help books next to my bed, and I had journals and journals and journals filled with so much crap and so many crazy stories, that I was really on a pursuit of something bigger. So even in the midst of my darkest addiction, I had a sense that there was something more for me. And I know that that higher knowing and that call and that desire also is a big reason why I was able to get sober. So on October 2nd of 2005, I had a real bottom where I looked at my life, and I knew that this was not the direction I was meant to be going in. And I also knew that it was either I'd turn it around or I would die. Like that was definitely the direction. And so I said a prayer. I asked for a miracle. And on that morning when I asked for that miracle, I really heard an intuitive voice, a voice within me say, get clean and you will live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And I got sober that day, and I never looked back. And it's been 12 years now of sobriety. Just celebrated 12 years in October.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you asked for a miracle. How do you define a miracle?
The way that I would define a miracle is a shift in your perception. So it's not that everything works out the way you thought it should, though that is often the case. It's that you changed your mind about it. It's that you chose to see it differently. And so the more we shift our perception from the fear-based belief systems that hold us back to a loving belief system that is much more empowering and all-knowing and connected, that's a miracle. So the miracle wasn't that I got sober. The miracle was that I chose to live.
You know, it's so funny because you mentioned before we started recording that you were sick and that you were taking some honey and that maybe it was a placebo, and like you do really well with placebos. And so I just wonder, like, is there, you know, what's the line between the placebo effect and like the metaphysical? Like, is there one? Does, like, you know, can intention, like, I don't know, like, how do you think about that, like, division? Because and and, how much of the work that we do with what we intend can we take credit for, I guess. I think we
can take full credit for for our intentions and our creations, because whatever we're intending is what we are creating. What we think we make, it becomes our reality. So it's our belief systems and it's a thought that we keep thinking that becomes a belief system. And that belief system, if it's out of alignment with the free-flowing, supportive, loving, true nature of who we are, then that's when we get sick. That's when we feel like we're not getting what we need. That's when we muck up our relationships. That's when we feel like we aren't earning enough, or all the blockages that we have in our life are just resistance. And so in the absence of that resistance, that's when we begin to really heal, and that's when we begin to attract, and that's when we begin to thrive in so many ways beyond our imagination, beyond whatever we could think of. And so the first step is really just releasing that resistance, and then really not only releasing the resistance, but also really claiming what we want. So focusing on our wellness rather than our illness, or focusing on abundance rather than lack. And it's incredibly empowering to live that way, but it's far more empowering to see the results of it.
Yeah. And I mean, do you think everyone's capable of taking like responsibility in their lives in that way? Because so much in our lives is built on putting the responsibility on the forces outside of ourselves. So much religion is built on that, where it's like, say a prayer and maybe the forces out there will like do you a favor, but like you don't have to change anything. Like, what's the question?
I can break it down for you. I know what you're asking.
Okay.
I think really simply, when we pray, we're really just choosing to get back into alignment. So whether you're praying to a higher power, or you're praying to God, or you're praying to something connected to your religion, or you're just praying to your own inner guidance system, that prayer is the medium for miracles. That prayer is the intention to choose again. That prayer is a commitment to see things differently. And so it's almost like a pivoting point. And so when you say that prayer, you pivot and you open up your consciousness to see things differently. And then as you begin to see things differently, and you have the willingness to see things differently, you create a different momentum. You start to feel a different energy behind you. And that's when things begin to change. So it's not that it's without action. It's that you're taking spiritually aligned action. And there's a big difference between just, forcing and willing something to happen, and saying a prayer, getting into alignment, feeling good about it, and then taking an action from that place, because there's far more momentum behind that energy than that pushy, needy, controlling energy that may have happened prior to that prayer.
How important is our subconscious in setting intentions? Because there's like you said, willing it and saying you want something, or writing it in your journal, and like thinking about it all the time. And then there's more passive ways to stay active with our subconscious.
The more that we believe something, the more active it is in our subconscious. So there's plenty of things in my life that have been really free-flowing and really easy to attract and easy to sustain, and particularly in my career, it's just been like this real free flow, like just everything is coming and coming and coming and coming and coming. And I continue to say yes and yes and yes and yes. And it's not like that in every area of my life, but it just happens to be in my career. And so my experience there is that because I'm in such a deep faith and belief around it, my subconscious is caught up with that. My subconscious is just in expectation. It's in positive expectation of more is coming, and I expect, and I will receive, and I will receive. And so I think that if we could be saying all the right things, like I want to attract this, and I'm ready to receive, and writing everything in our journal, and visioning it. But if there's a part of us that doesn't fully believe it, then that's the subconscious that's blocking that manifestation into our life.
Do you think we're receiving some stuff from like a power out there? Like, what do you think about the word God?
I believe that God is an ever-present energy, and it is an energy that is within us and around us, and it's an energy that is a part of who we are, and we can tune into that energy. And the more we lean into high-powered, good-feeling thoughts, the more we are aligned with God. So feeling good is feeling God.
Soon after she got sober and healthy, actually just 4 months into her recovery, Gabby decided to start using her own story and spiritual knowledge to empower audiences to achieve their highest potential. Here's how Gabby remembers the moment she decided to take her experiences to audiences around the world.
I had a business partner at the time, and I said, listen, I'm getting sober, and I wasn't ready to put down that business, but I still, I couldn't go into the nightclubs. It was like, it just didn't work anymore. So it was an easy transition out of that relationship with my business partner, because it was clear that that type of business wasn't going to work for me anymore. And so we slowly started to gradually just let it go. And I started very quickly in my recovery, in my sober recovery, I started very quickly speaking publicly about what I was going through and putting on talks, because I had been speaking earlier. So I felt really confident getting up on the microphone and giving a talk. And so I started to put together these little motivational talks, and I would put them on at the Soho House. And I would tell people to come, and they'd pay like $20. And I was putting on all these people now are putting on little wellness talks and things, which is unbelievable to me. I think that this was definitely the beginning of that, without a doubt. And these talks were 40 women, became 100 women, became 300 women. And it just, became the zeitgeist. And it was this new wave of New York women that were coming out on a Friday night to sit in the Gay, Lesbian, Transgender Center in the West Village to hear me talk. And some of my old talks are still on iTunes, and they're up on my site, and it's hysterical. It's so funny. And that all these people, some people come up to me and they're like, I used to come to your old talks back in, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And it's it was a thing. It was a cool thing. And I started doing that while I still had my PR business.
I'm always super interested to hear about how people find their purpose. I asked Gabby to talk to us about how being a publicist helped prepare her for life in motivational speaking.
This is important for the entrepreneurs out there to hear, because I think there's that transitioning your career is an art, and you don't want to do it too fast, because if you do it too fast, you'll freak out. You'll lose the momentum, because you'll get into fear. You'll have financial insecurity. You'll feel like you don't know what you're doing, or whatever it may be. So there is an art in the ease of just really creating that shift. And so for me, I let myself off the hook, and I kept this business of PR for a little while I started coaching people on the side and giving talks at night, and then I started doing group coaching workshops. But the thing that I did that was interesting was, instead of practicing PR for nightclubs, which was no longer aligned with me, I started picking up clients that were wellness related. So I took on health food restaurants. I did PR for a doula, who later became one of my best friends. I did a lot of work in that wellness space, because intuitively I knew that the media contacts that I was going to make for those brands were going to be media contacts that I could use for my own brand later, which I did. So I was at least feeling aligned with what I was promoting in that transitional period. It was about a year where I was PR girl by day and moonlighting as a motivational speaker. And it was a cool time. I was proud of myself.
At what point did you get clean? Was it sometime during that year?
I got sober before that transition. So I got sober at 25, and then right away started giving those talks on my sobriety and transitioning out of that business.
Was giving talks about your addictions therapeutic?
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. Even to this day, every talk I give, I'm always telling people how I screw up. And it's the safest way for me to get to be a speaker, because it's the most authentic way. So the moment that I'm no longer being authentic, then it doesn't feel safe anymore. So it's been an amazing opportunity for me to really just get lined up and be real and let people see themselves in me. So is it therapeutic to be a speaker even to this day? Yes. The answer is 100% yes. It is extremely therapeutic, because for me, when I put a voice to my own shame, I set myself free.
I'm pretty sure guru isn't a major in college. So how did Gabby learn and master meditation, yoga, and spiritual practices?
I had a bunch of mentors along the way. I had a great mentor called Joe Watson, was a lovely man who came into my life who really helped me transition my career. He just cared about me and believed in me. Like, it's just, sometimes you find those angels that come into your life. And he lived in D.C. with his family, but every time he'd come into New York, he'd have a meeting with me, and he wrote some books on the side. So he would talk to me about my book writing and, getting me prepared to sell my first book and introduce me to my first literary agent. And so he was a big mentor to me. And then I had a coach at the time. Her name was Raw Goddess. She was a real impact on my life, and she's become a very close friend of mine today. And Ra really, really rocked my world. She came into my life in a very cool way. Do you want to hear the story, how I was attracted to her?
Yeah.
So I think, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So there was a time in my late 20s when I was kind of knee-deep in this new career. And I really was looking for not only a mentor, but somebody to help me with I was severely codependent. So even though I was sober, I was acting out in relationships, and I was really codependent. And I wanted to heal that because I knew that if I was going to really step out as big as I knew I needed to, that I had to heal that. And I started to pray every day for a guide, a teacher, somebody to come into my life. And around that time that I was saying those prayers, I started getting a few different nudges from the universe. And my neighbor said, "Oh, you're doing all this great work with young women. You've got to meet my friend Raw Goddess. She's doing all this work with young women." The next day I was at a meeting, like a business-to-business meeting, and the woman said, "Oh, you're doing such cool stuff. You got to meet my friend Raw Goddess." And then it was like a third time somebody said, "You got to meet Raw Goddess." And so I was like, okay, I guess I have to meet this woman. And I just kept hearing the nudge and kept hearing the nudge. And I got on the phone with Raw Goddess, and she said, I'm really busy. I'm going to be in Brazil in a few weeks. I'm going to see this medium in Brazil. And I was like, in a few weeks, I'm going to see a medium in Brazil. And it turned out that we were going to see the same medium in Brazil at the same time. And so and it's like, this tiny little town, Abadiânia in Brazil. And it was like, I'm there at the exact same time as her. And I don't meet her when I'm there. So we don't hook up. And then on the plane home from Brazil, I'm sitting next to a woman, and I said to her, these are the things I'm doing with my work. And she said, "Oh, I met the most wonderful person in Abadiânia. Here's her business card." And she hands me Ra's business card. And then a week later, I was in New Orleans for Eve Ensler's V-Day, like a huge event that she was putting on in New Orleans. And I remember looking at the lineup of all the speakers, and it was like 12 noon was Rosario Dawson, and then, Jane Fonda, and then at 2 p.m., Raw Goddess. And it was like, are you kidding me? This woman was just literally following me everywhere. And so I finally met her that day, and I said, let's get together. And so I thought we were getting together to kind of have a business-to-business meeting and see if we could collaborate. And in that meeting, she was telling me all about all the things that she had manifested in her career and all that she had created. And she was just such a powerful force, this woman. And I was so blown away by her. And then she was sharing about how she attracted her husband and her beloved, and the amazing relationship that she had with him, and all the great work that she had to do on healing herself in order to attract him into her life. And so I looked at her and I said, "Oh my God, this is exactly what I've been waiting for." And I knew that she was life coaching people on the side. I said, "Do you still coach people?" And she said, "I only coach people that I want to take to the next level." And she said, "I coach people just like you." And I said, "Okay, sign me up. Where do I sign the check?" And so I cut her a check that day. I was like, let's go, girl. And so she became a really integral part of my own personal growth, my spiritual growth, and my career growth. And she speaks on my stages today. She's like a big friend of mine and a beautiful teacher. RHA, Raw Goddess.
We'll have more with Gabby Bernstein in a minute, but first let's talk about MeUndies.
Comfy.
Every year, millions of people receive the least liked gift of all time. What is that, Jericho?
Undies.
Well, but we still give them to our family members and loved ones. I'm not sure why, but we do it. But maybe it's not the underwear that's the problem. Maybe it's the
kind of undies.
Let me tell you about MeUndies, the only underwear that makes for an amazing gift. I just got a package in the mail, and it comes in the cutest little cloth bag that itself is Instagram worthy, and the underwear is so soft. And I got the thong. It's kind of seamless on the sides. It's really nice, doesn't dig in.
this holiday season, to get your exclusive 20% off the softest underwear and socks that you will literally ever wear, and free shipping and 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to meundies.com/girlboss. That's meundies.com/girlboss.
MeUndies make underwear the perfect gift everyone is going to love you for. And it's a goddamn holiday miracle. This year, don't give underwear, give MeUndies. Now, please turn your attention to author, motivational speaker, life coach, and spirit junkie Gabby Bernstein. So you were featured on Oprah's Super Soul series. What was that like?
Well, that was really cool because it was full manifestation come into full form. Because I was on my stages and my audiences just telling people for years, like, I'm going to be on Oprah. I'm going to be sitting next to Oprah when I sit next to Oprah. And it was really cool because all these women that had been following me when I was early in my career got to see that come into form and really help them believe in what I was teaching. So that was kind of awesome because I'd meditate on it and I'd feel and I'd assume the feeling of what it'd feel like to sit next to Oprah, and I would see myself in her studio, and I really experienced the feeling before it became the experience in my life. And that's the key to manifesting, is really to assume the energy of what it is that you want to create and then allow it to come to you. And so when I got the phone call, hey, it's Oprah's producers, we want to have you on Super Soul Sunday, I was like, oh yeah, I've been waiting for this call. Like, I was ready for it. So that was beautiful, and to be part of her Super Soul community and to speak at her Super Soul sessions this year recently was like a really big honor to be able to speak on her stage. And Oprah's a really, really rad woman. She's like, she always has a good attitude, and I believe that that's probably the biggest key to her successes.
So I want to talk about meditation because, it's something you've done for so long. How does it really work? And why do you think meditation is so important?
The number one reason meditation is important is because it lowers our stress levels. And stress is what's making us sick, and stress is what's making us feel divided, and stress is what's making us feel disconnected from what we want to call into our life. So when we meditate, we lower our cortisol levels significantly. There's a study that was shown on transcendental meditation that you can lower your cortisol levels by 30% in 20 minutes of TM, and whereas a full night's sleep lowers your cortisol levels by 10%. So it's pretty unbelievable. And I have a transcendental meditation practice where I sit for 20 minutes twice a day, and it's really helping me a lot. And when I fall off and only get that one meditation, and I can really feel the difference. And I need the two meditations to help me sustain that level of well-being, because it's when I don't do it, it's that I get stressed out and my body gets out of whack and my nervous system changes and things like that happen.
Gabby wasn't about to escape this conversation without giving us some tools and advice to help us navigate the craziness of our daily lives. I asked her to share some of her best strategies.
Start when you first wake up in the morning. So sitting up in bed, get to it. Because the second you get out of bed, you're going to hit the phone and you're going to get the coffee and you're going to move, right? So do it the moment you wake up. That's a big one. And sometimes I wake up in bed with my husband, so we will meditate together sometimes if he's in the mood. And then the afternoon meditation for me, listen, I'm not going to paint a picture that this is easy for everybody, because I happen to work for myself. So I could step away and take 20 minutes at 4 o'clock when I want to. If you work at a day job and you can't get that time in, you might want to make it right after work you do it. Like that's right before you cook your dinner, or right before you go out to dinner if you can get it in. So that would be the suggestion I would make, is like right away, right when you get home from work. Because you're going to need it then. You're going to really need it then.
What do we need to meditate? Like, what's our starter kit? Do we need anything?
Well, I think you need a mantra when you first start. I can give you guys a mantra today. I think when you're first starting out, it's nice to have a mantra-based meditation, because a mantra can bring you like an anchor back to a single-pointed focus. Because when we're meditating and we're just sitting and we're just like not focusing on anything, what happens is our monkey mind will go crazy, and we'll start thinking about all the things that we have to do and all the things that we didn't do and all the things that are coming and the to-do list and the shopping list. So the moment that we start to allow ourselves to lean on a mantra, that's when things really start to change. So a mantra I can give you tonight is called Sat Nam, Satnam. Sat Nam means truth is my name, or truth identified. And when we say Sat Nam, we are allowing ourselves, we just repeat that mantra, Sat Nam, Sat Nam, Sat Nam, and just silently repeat that mantra to yourself. And when you notice your thoughts go in that crazy town, start thinking of things that don't feel good, or you start thinking about things that are not the mantra, you will witness yourself in those thoughts, and then you'll gently guide yourself back to the mantra. And the key to this is just to return to the mantra, return to the mantra, return to the mantra. And so the more you return to the mantra, the more comfortable you become there. And then if you get so deeply into the mantra, you can get into a transcendental state where you just are really zen and almost not disconnected in that place of no mind. It's a beautiful place to be.
I've heard you mention this Zen den in your videos. What is your Zen den like?
I live part of the time in New York City and then part of the time in the country. And my Zen den in the city is a loft where I have an altar. And I've got some meditation pillows. And I have mala beads from my Kundalini teachers. And I've got pictures of my guru, and I've got all the stuff, right? Like candles and crystals, and really the cliche of what an altar would look like. And then in the country, I'm just in the process right now of creating my Zen den. So I'm putting furniture. It's like my office also and my Zen den. And one section of the room is really just dedicated to comfortable couches and chairs that I move around when I'm meditating. So that one day I'll sit in the couch, one day I'll sit in the chair. And I have a spiritual group that I meet with when I live in the country. One of the blessings of choosing to live up in the country is the people are unbelievable. And I've cultivated this great spiritual group of friends who I recently took them through my book, Judgement, Detox, which was really awesome. And I'm decorating my Zen den to have them over so we can meditate together in my Zen den, and we can have our little spiritual talks on Sundays, which is very cool. Everybody needs a spiritual group. It's really special. And it's such an anchor in my life. And so,
what do you guys talk about in your spiritual group?
Well, over the summer, I took them through, I took on a leadership position in my spiritual group, and I took them through my book, Judgement, Detox. So that was really cool. I was kind of less passive and more of the teacher then. And then my friend Brooke, he took on the role of the guide, I guess, for this next phase. And now we're working on some Eckhart Tolle content and just reading Eckhart Tolle's book. And it's a little bit like a book club and a little bit just like a connecting moment. And we come together and we do 20-minute meditation together. And then we talk about whatever text we've been reading, and we kind of get into a deeper conversation, and we start to receive a lot of intuition for each other. And it's really cool.
So you mentioned saying yes to the universe, but I want to talk a little bit about saying no, because saying no is a really important boundary setting word. How can we say yes to the universe while making sure that we're taking the time to take care of ourselves and weed through all of the things that bombard us from the outside in this world?
Well, sometimes when we're saying, I think when we're saying no, we're saying yes for something else. So I think for me, a lot of the times when I say no for things related to my career, I'm saying yes to my wellness or yes to my self-care. So a no is a yes for something better.
Gabby's books, workshops, and speaking engagements have helped countless women release their fears and embrace a more positive outlook on life. In January, she has a new book coming out, Judgement, Detox, and I asked her to give us a sneak peek as to what we'll find in its pages.
Well, this book is timely. First of all, it's brave of me to put my face on the cover of this book, my friend, because every time I judge, I'm like, my husband looks at me and goes, Judgement, Detox. I'm like, oh, damn.
Oh, no.
It is so,
oh, no. My boyfriend goes, Girlboss.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, if I'm like, have a preference, he's like, ugh, Girlboss.
Yeah, really, exactly. So I get a lot of that back at me. And it's a good thing, because practicing the book has really healed me. So I'm challenged to continue to practice it every day as a result of putting my face on the cover. And it's a beautiful 6-step practice on how to heal our judgmental addiction. And I say addiction because judgment is just another form of addiction. It's a way that we anesthetize any deep-rooted feelings of inadequacy or self-attack or feelings of not being good enough. We judge and we project out what we don't want to feel within. So the beautiful practices here help you heal the wounds that live beneath the judgment and practice compassion for yourself and others, and using meditation and emotional freedom technique and gorgeous prayers and forgiveness practices to heal your perception of judgment. As you heal that perception of judgment, it's not that you're never going to judge again, it's just that you're no longer going to believe in it. And you'll have a lower tolerance for it. You'll no longer have a tolerance for that kind of mind wandering and for that kind of negativity, because you're going to feel called to see things differently. And it's extremely timely. I'm so glad this book is coming out now. People are saying, why did you time it because of what's going on in the world? And I was like, no, the universe has a plan better than I do. But I wrote the book during the 2016 election at the height of Judgment, and it's coming out now at a time where we've never been more divided. So I feel really, really clear that this is the book of a real important book of this time for people to begin to take seriously. Because the way I look at it is, I see myself as a spiritual activist, and I believe that the more people I can help shift their own perceptions, the more they change energetically. And as they change their energy has a ripple effect, and it changes the energy of someone that they love or someone that they work with. And then that person shifts their energy, and that energy begins to change the other person around them. And this is the ripple effect that we need at this time. So that's my intention for this book, is that as many people as possible can begin their judgment detox journey so they can change their energy, raise their vibration, become more compassionate, kind, loving people, and one person at a time start to shift the energy of the world that we live in.
Do you have 4 minutes to answer a few questions from Instagram? Because
Of course. Yeah, I'd love to.
Asked people on Instagram. So Seb Oval asks, what's your best tip to stay motivated?
Lean towards joy and what makes you feel good. When you are doing anything that's not feeling good, then you lose your motivation.
Joel Malton asks, what is self-love and how do you practice it?
Self-love means that you are really, 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 really compassionate towards yourself, no matter what. And the way you practice it is having a very proactive conversation with yourself regularly, where the moment you see the thoughts of self-attack show up, or the moment you notice yourself beating yourself up for something, or if you feel bad because you did something wrong or you judge someone, you very proactively talk your way out of it by telling yourself how proud you are of noticing it and how wonderful you are for caring for yourself so much to change your thoughts, and just thinking your way out with a lot of compassion and love. And that's how I practice self-love. It's just speaking compassionately to myself.
Gabby's book, May Cause Miracles, made it to the New York Times bestseller list in 2013. She was featured on Oprah's own network, as well as a regular contributor on Dr. Oz, and she has meditated with Deepak Chopra. And she's still in her 30s. So what does the notion of success mean to her?
Well, I've shared this on your stage, actually, which is that success to me is a reflection of how much fun I'm having. So I measure my success based on how much fun I'm having.
So we have this thing called Girlboss Moments on the podcast, and I always apologize for the name of it. I'm just going to stop because I'm sure our listeners are tired of hearing me say, oh God, I don't know why we didn't name it something cooler. I'm usually pretty good at naming things. But it's called the Girlboss Moment,
okay.
And it's really open-ended. It's a Girlboss moment is a time in your most recent history that you can remember where you were really in charge of your time, of your life, and doing something for yourself, even if it was doing something for someone else that made you feel like you were contributing to, creating a better life for yourself. So, Gabby, I'm guessing you have just a never-ending series of Girlboss moments, but what was the most recent Girlboss moment that you can remember?
Last Thursday night, I led a talk for anyone who pre-ordered my book. So I led a talk for 15,000 people who were watching on live stream and live in person. And I gave the talk not just for them, but I gave it to myself. I literally devoted that talk, and I dedicated that talk to myself, because I was crawling out of another sort of spiritual relapse, and had been in a dark place with a lot of stress in the last few months. And so I was like, tonight I'm going to have a really good time. And I'm not going to do it because of the audience. I'm going to do it for myself. And so I left that stage feeling so lit up and reminded and reconnected and realigned. And I was really proud of myself for healing myself that night.
Gabby, thank you so much for coming on Girlboss Radio.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Girlboss Radio. Follow us on social media at Girlboss. Everywhere social media is found. On Facebook, we're at Girlboss Media. And you can find me at Sophia Amoruso and Jericho at
Jericho.Mandybear.
Are you public yet?
Yeah, I went public.
Ooh-hoo.
Huge.
Happy holidays. And subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a nice review if you think we're nice, or if you listen to this thing, because it helps us move up through the rankings in the business section on Apple, iTunes, podcast sections, where it's mostly dudes.